Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, the president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. This very special program, a look into my personal life. I surround myself by gorgeous, intelligent, smart women who do all the work at the Independence Institute. So I thought, why not let you see what I have to go through every day? First, let's introduce everybody. Pam Benigno, who runs our Education Policy Center. Thank you for being here. Linda Gorman, everyone knows here, who does our health care. Amy Oliver Cooke, who runs the place, our vice president, and energy and everything else.
I just get to sign all the checks.
Signs all the checks. And Raaki Garcia-Ulam, who does our Hispanic outreach. All right. We run this free market think tank, the Independence Institute, and people don't quite get what it is we do. But there's this image that if you believe in freedom, if you believe in free markets, well, that's anti-woman. Women don't subscribe to that. That we need a safety net, and government provides that safety net, and that's why it seems to be so odd that this organization has attracted so many women. There are more women that work at Independence, and it's certainly not because of me. It's because of freedom. What is it? Is it being mislabeled? Because women overwhelmingly vote Democratic. We know this.
No, we don't.
Yes, you do.
Married women vote Republican.
Married women vote Republican?
Typically,
so
yeah.
If we just marry them off, Republicans can win. Mm-hmm. So we need a big sort of dating service.
Might work.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Spanish, too.
Really? Yeah. But women as a block, and are women a block, tend to vote more emotionally. They're more emotionally driven. They're more driven by their passions than by what's on the taxes.
There's truth in that, and I think probably the last few election cycles, a lot of that bears out. We can see that, but here's the difference. Problem is the other side. You call it a safety net. You just said it yourself, safety net, and that's because that's how it's been defined. It's a safety net. No, what it's done is actually created a dependency. It's not a safety net anymore. A safety net means that somebody actually when they fall, you've got somebody to pick you up, as opposed to an absolute cycle of dependency generation after generation. So we have done a poor job on our side marketing to the emotional side. If you were to ask a woman, do you believe you ought to be able to make choices on how to spend your own money? I think most of them would say, well, yeah, of course I should. Well, then why do you allow government first crack at all your cash? And why do you vote for tax increases that end up hurting your ability to make those decisions? See, we've done a lousy job of marketing it. I think actually freedom is the most emotional.
But let me be stereotypical here, which was really hard. But women prefer safety, men prefer risk as a generality, just as a generality. And safety has this illusion that government can bring you some sort of safety. Let's go with Obamacare. You saw the Julia ad that Obama did during his reelection, and it was the safety net of the government that was there for her education as a kid and helping her through prenatal care when she was pregnant, and helped her with health care that was affordable, and then helped with her retirement through Social Security. That was an emotional thing because there seems to be a craving for safety, and there's this illusion that government provides that safety.
Until
right?
They stop paying for your health care, which they've done, and cancel your insurance and tell you to get lost when you're older because you cost too much. So yeah, it's an illusion of safety. I took the Julia ads. My daughter's name is Julia, so I took them, sent them to her. Look, if you have the government take care of you, you have this really boring life, you never do anything, and you're always dependent. She laughed. So no, maybe that's true, but I think that smart women don't buy into that, and women who are actively engaged in their community don't buy into that. So I don't think it's right to think of women as a group any more than it's right to think of men as a group, but then I'm old and cranky and probably out in the distribution. I went to a school where I was like the second co-ed class, right? You took exams, you had to first figure out where the bathrooms were for women because they could be a long way away, and you had to time your answers. I'm so tired of the women's stuff, so I'm not a good topic for this show.
But then why do we keep losing? Why is it that we have a hard time? You deal in educational choice. we believe that money should follow the student, that choices should follow the student, that we should have all sorts of different things that pop up so people can choose which way they want to go and which way their family wants to go.
Yeah, free market think tanks like the Independence Institute are supportive of school choice. We really want the government to get out of the way and let parents take charge of the education of their children, whether that be money following them to a private school or to a public school or creating a public charter school. And it's the government regulations that cause the obstacles for so much freedom. And so women really who are passionate about their children, not to say that dads aren't, but they should be supporting free market ideals for educational choice.
But be honest, they don't. They don't. Let's talk about the Hispanic community as well. You know, this is the big untapped market, if you will, for ideological thought. And a lot of racial blocs you can put on party lines. African Americans vote something like 95% Democratic. The Hispanic community is very different. It's very diverse. You know, is freedom an issue that they want, or do they also crave some type of security that government can provide?
I think how it's been sold is that security is more important than liberty. And so it sounds attractive, even though that's the reason they escape or have left their countries of origin. So I think the left has done such a great job, and truly they have done a great job, influencing Hispanic voters, because they bring the information in a way that if you really are wanted in this country, this is your candidate. This candidate shows you that they care for you, where Mr. X over here, he doesn't care about you. And so there is this misguided information that really is confusing to the voters. But what I have learned through my radio show is that once women get the information, they're the ones guiding the husbands how to vote. So
that's just sexist. That's just sexist.
Well, but they are at home. They're listening to talk radio, and so they are getting the facts. And in my show, they get the facts.
Well, all right. So I'm trolling for women of questionable character at a bar, and I say I work at a think tank. I believe in liberty, and I explain the whole philosophy of how free markets work and how people can be empowered, and that we believe in the sovereign ability of the individual. And the usual response goes, "That's wonderful. That's terrific. You know, that sounds really good in theory. But I live here in the real world, and I don't want that kind of world. That sounds mean. It sounds nasty. Corporations will be in control. It doesn't work. We need the government." And the idea that this libertarian ideal of people regulating themselves through their own activities, that people have property rights and rule of law, that's great and wonderful up to a point. But in practice, it doesn't work. You run into the same thing, don't you?
Well, what's funny is I can't get past the fact that you were at a bar trolling for women and they turned you down. I'm so shocked.
Go figure.
Perhaps it's your pickup line.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
Hey, are you a Keynesian? Has worked for me for years.
For years, and
Works for the media.
Yeah.
To characterize people who shoot people. They're Keynesians.
Women, you know, first of all, in full disclosure, we should all be at a different meeting right now, which is whining with women. And Jon, our boss, took us away from that.
Explain whining with women, which happens today.
It's not W-H-I-N-I-N-G, it's W-I-N-I-N-G. We do have a men's auxiliary, so we do allow the men of the
it's a weekly I drunk that happens on Thursday afternoons.
I prefer to call it a staff meeting. See, once again, the messaging is all wrong for you. If I call it a weekly drunk, the ladies may not show up. It sounds a little bit unsavory. But if I call it a staff meeting or an opportunity to pair policy with a good wine, pair policy with food, suddenly people want to be involved. I'll go back to the original point, which is we have done a lousy job of making freedom a kitchen table issue. And women, you know, they vote personally. You know, how does something affect them personally? And if we can't, if you're going to talk about Keynesian economics, I guarantee you know, you're going to, this table might understand it, but you're going to lose a large majority of the audience of who we're trying to get vote. And a prime example is one of the things we did in Douglas County, where we actually reached out to people, knocked on doors, talked with them, continued a relationship with them, had a voter turnout heavily, it was heavily geared toward women. 88% of them turned out to vote. That's because we built a relationship. Free marketeers have done a lousy job of building relationships.
Well, it's the nature of our philosophy, which
Well,
is
then-
we
then
want the freedom to be left alone.
Then don't complain when people don't vote with you, if you're not going to build the relationship.
So wait a second, you're telling
You
me
have to go to their community.
So in order to get chicks to vote for freedom, we have to build relationships. Now
Yes.
I got to talk to them. And
There's
and
a crazy idea.
But again, it's why is there not a gravitation towards liberty when it comes to women? If you say we need to talk over the kitchen table, I get that. What are we doing wrong?
I think Raaki had a good point. You are what your information flows are. Think about what women are exposed to in information. Have you ever read a women's magazine? You know, have you ever looked at, look, even at the Wall Street Journal, the women's section is full of misinformation.
How so?
It's weird stories on weird parenting and weird stories on, Rocky's nodding over there. Yeah, it's just like, the big picture issue they have with the nice fashion pictures is interesting, but the women's section is icky.
Icky?
Icky. And I think maybe it's because there are just a few places where these things are controlled. They're staffed by people who went to school in the Northeast, and they aren't like the broad group of voters. Because when you go to your kid's sports team and start talking to people, there's lots of people there who support liberty. And they're male and female, too.
And I think a lot of people do, and they just don't know it.
Yeah.
And
How do you
that they
mean?
need, well, I think that when you sit down with some people that might vote the opposite that I might vote, and you sit down and you really talk about the issues, and you talk about taxes, and you talk about regulation, I think that, and economics, I think that they'd say, oh yeah, I believe in that, but they don't realize that. They need to be educated. Remember, most of them are coming from the public school system, and it's entrenched with a doctrine that really isn't what we would support as far as liberty goes. And they're encouraged to, fight for social justice. We've done a show on that before. We have a lot of education to do to help people realize
have to
how
unlearn.
conservative they really are.
Yeah, you're right. You have to unlearn to support liberty. But if you just have a life
What
and you're
do you have
really
to
busy,
unlearn?
if you come out of K through 12, the zeitgeist there is government's good for you, government control, it's getting worse in terms of the curriculum. And so if you're going to switch from just floating along in that, you have to start learning about market principles. That's hard, all right? But if you just float, and people do, because if you're female, you end up, you're bringing Christmas to America right now, you're taking care of kids, you're working, you have a lot on your plate. You don't have time to go out and search for alternative media. And so you're going to keep your
And I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And I think you're absolutely right. For example, we did a show on Amendment 66. We did various, but one in particular where Linda came on, she broke down 66 in such a beautiful way. She explained how there would end up being a loophole in our state constitution. People gravitated to that. They really got it. The calls were so thankful that Linda explained that so well. So it's really, bottom line is education. So people really, and some of the callers said things of this nature. Jair said, I don't want our constitution to change, because if they change that, then this country will be no different than any other country. This country is the best country in the world because there's rules, there's this guidance, there's this documents on the states at the national level, and it unites us, but it keeps us organized.
When it's selling it on an emotional point, it's difficult for us because we like graphs, we like charts, we like facts, we like figures, we like principles. Yeah, look at you. You're an economist. You love them. You see how happy you are.
Makes me happy.
A couple of years back, I went to my kids' school sing-along, and they're all up there singing. And so there's my girl, and they're singing reduce, reuse, recycle. And it's like, all right, fine, there it is. And they're singing, but there's my little girl. So I'm a puddle of mush. And then finally they start singing we are the children. We are the world. We are the children. And so, I roll, but it's my girl. And then finally she gets her 3 seconds. Everybody gets 3 seconds. She's at the microphone. We are the children, in this terrible voice. And I'm just a puddle of mush, about ready to cry because it's so beautiful. All right, so the whole crowd is like that. And we're all emotionally weak because our little babies are there growing up. And then afterwards they give flowers to the teacher and then flowers to the music teacher, who then starts to cry and say, oh, these things are so important, but because of budget cuts, we'll probably have to cut the music program. And this is so awful, which they'd never cut, of course. But you've got all these people at their emotional weakest, and that's where they hit you with this belly punch of, oh, because we just don't have the money to keep doing this stuff. And they're 400 people who right then and there would have opened up their wallets and everybody else's wallet and vote for a massive tax increase. That's salesmanship. We don't do that.
No, we're more honest than that.
How so?
I mean, they can reprioritize how they spend their money, and there's no reason why there can't be a music program. They just have to reprioritize things.
That's just mean. That's just mean.
It just makes sense.
It's mean to deprive my household of food-type luxuries because I have to pay higher taxes.
What do you mean?
It means I can't have decent music for my kid outside the schools because I can't afford it because I'm paying higher taxes.
You sound selfish. You guys are so selfish. You're self-centered.
actually,
It's about
I know
your
what's
kids.
best for my kid. That's
but what
right.
about the other kids who don't have parents as good as
There
you?
was a ballot measure in my hometown, and it was to raise a tax. It was a mill levy override, tax increase for the children, for the kids, and it was, listen, it's nothing more than just a large pizza and a couple of lattes a month. To which I responded, how nice that it's just a large pizza and a couple of lattes for you. That's my child's copay for her orthodontics.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what?
How dare you tell me how to spend my money?
Right, and how dare you come up to me and say that it's nothing but a pizza and a couple of lattes. You have no idea what my budget is.
You are all so very selfish that if
we
you
are
cared.
protective of our families.
And
that's
that-
right. And we are going to protect them from the government, and we're going to protect them from predators and mashers in bars and so forth.
And spending bullies.
Yes.
All right, when you say you're going to protect them from the government, isn't that flipping it around? Because I think a lot of women, particularly there are a lot of single moms out there, and it's a tough go. So to have subsidized health insurance, that's a good thing. To have government take care of education, that's a good thing. To know that there is going to be retirement for me afterwards, to understand that there will be that security. Government is not there to be protected from. Government is the protection from people like you who are so cruel that you're self-centered.
Which is why all the people like us marched across the Brooklyn Bridge a couple of months ago protesting the shutdown of charter schools in New York City because they were single moms who knew their kids were going to be in a dangerous public school environment, and they wanted to get their kids out, and they couldn't because the government was blocking them. A lot of kids in Denver and other places in the state get lousy educations, and government is making it impossible for people to move their kids to better educations, and they know it.
And that's just cruel.
And that's why
That's
there's
cruel.
waiting lists, and that's cruel. That's using children.
And it's one of the
to support
using
bureaucrats.
children. Every tax
Yeah.
increase always has children up front. But what's been interesting?
abusing
Let me
children.
ask both of you about this. The educational choice movement, which seemed to be a bunch of white guys wanting vouchers, has really morphed into inner cities demanding better schools. And here in DPS, there's more choices than ever. It's places like Cleveland and Wisconsin and DC that finding this. The voices now for money following the kids isn't coming from suburbanites. It's coming from urban poor families. Am I wrong on that?
Well, I think Denver and the Denver School Board, they're doing a great job with setting up networks of charter schools that are successful with their population. And I only hope that some of those schools, and I ask them quite often, will you come to Jefferson County?
Really?
Please, we have areas in Jefferson County where we need those same kinds of successful schools. And what I hear often is, well, we need to go to we'll only go to a district where we know we're welcome and they're going to help us. Now with the new Jefferson County School Board, maybe that will happen. We'll see.
Interesting. What about from your point of view? It's not white guys demanding change in education. It's poor families saying the government's not doing it for us. And by the time you guys figure it out, my kid's grown up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of what we have done at the Independence Institute with the Education Policy Center. We have brought the good news of school choice to a variety of communities, going to churches. Pastors want to find out this information. They're letting me come to their churches on their Sundays off the pulpit and talk about school choice because they want their community to be better off, have those opportunities. Now, there are parents that learn from our event at the school choice event that we had in January that it was the first time that they heard it. So regardless that I'm at churches all over the state, there's not enough Rockies going places to inform families. I'll give you a very quick story, and we have many stories, but this one particularly hit my heart. This mom came to our event, our school choice event, back in January of last year, or this year, I'm sorry, and she had been through 5 different schools, and a very involved parent, but she did not know about school choice. So she kept taking her kid out at different schools because they did not provide what that child really needed. And they come, mom, dad, the child come to our event. They learn about, we're watching Waiting for Superman in Spanish, and they learn about KIPP, which is a charter group. Excellent schools. And they go home, they review their website, they learn everything. She shows up the next day. She thinks she has to pay, but it's a charter school. And she's like, I don't care what it costs, I'll pay it, I'll take a second job. And my husband will take a second job, but we want our child here. And they inform her, it's free. It's just like, what do you mean it's free? I don't understand. And they explain to her it's charter.
It's a public school.
It's a public
just
school.
part of choice. All right, we're going to run out of time before we know it, but let me put this out. Feminists would say something like this. You know, for too long, women have been relying upon men, that the security you got was with a man. The man would go out and take care of the risk, but there was security in the family, and we have finally broken through that, and we're now beyond that. All right, that's fine. Is government now the new husband? Is government the new Prince Charming? That government comes and says, you know what? We'll take care of you. All you need to do is do this. And I worry that it's a lie. Just like marrying a drunk and you don't know he's drunk yet, or a guy who's in debt and you're saying, I'm going to be set. No, you're marrying somebody who's bankrupt. And I'm wondering why that's wise. Is government the new Prince Charming? You said yes.
Well, I think they're the new patriarch in many women's lives.
How so?
Because they have traded dependency on a husband for dependency on government.
How? In what way?
Because what used to be, stay at home, and I give a lot of credit to a movement that provided additional choice for women, but it went too far, and now that choice, and I'll say, National Organization for Women have completely compromised their principles, and this is not about women, it's about progressive left. If it was about women, they'd be advocating freedom for women, not dependency on government.
Way? Give me an example.
Well, some of what you just talked about, subsidies for health care. Listen, you know what? Oftentimes what those will do, and Linda can talk more about, you can't break a cycle of poverty because you only get those things if you're at a certain level, and if you go above it, then
you earn one more dollar,
yeah,
you lose
you
money from
lose,
your health
yeah,
care subsidy.
You
it's
lose money.
designed to keep people from earning enough to get
So
out.
it's like the abuser who says, you're not good enough.
And whacks you again.
Yeah, and it says you're not good.
Are you comparing government to an abusive man, an abusive husband?
An emotionally
Yes.
abusive.
How so?
Because if they'll listen, you're not good. You can't do it without me. You earn another dollar. You're not getting any more. Go outside of this, and I'm cutting you off.
You go out, honey, and get a real job, then you're not getting anything here.
You get cut off.
Yeah, go make another buck, and you're going to lose all this. You buy that?
Yeah. Government's more like a gigolo or something. I mean,
Yeah, the cheating boyfriend.
the cheating boyfriend who's also a drunk. I mean, look, what the feminists did was they said you don't need a man. What that's really saying is that people working in groups don't matter. Good marriages are a really, really good thing because it's 2 people against the world instead of 1. It's a lot easier if you can do it. It's hard if you can't. But what we really need is an economy where people have mobility and can go through the ranks, and by hard work you get rewarded. And there are a lot of people working together to help people take care of their children or whatever. Government doesn't do that. Government puts barriers in the way of mobility. and makes
How
it
so?
harder.
Give me an example of a barrier to mobility.
Varied mobility. I'm unskilled. You have a minimum wage. The minimum wage is so high nobody will hire me. I can never have a job. I can't even get a second job. Obamacare means nobody will hire me for more than 29 hours a week because it's too expensive if I'm unskilled. If I have a child, the public schools are set up for teacher convenience, and so why don't the public schools have before and after day care program? It's beginning to change, but a lot of private schools do that automatically because they know they have working parents and they help the parents.
And they respond to their customers.
Hot lanes, you know, the hot lanes they wouldn't put in on the interstate because, well, only rich people would use them. Well, they're really important for a woman who's headed for daycare who's going to charge her $15 a minute if she's late. And she might have a low-wage job.
What about,
she needs certainty. I mean, government gets in the way.
We've only got about a minute left, so
Sorry.
I think women hear conservative and they think social conservative, that they're moralizers telling you, well, you're going to keep your family together. I mean, 3 of us here have been divorced, all right? Is social conservatism the same as what we try to promote when it's liberty, economic liberty, or are they one and the same?
Well, social conservatism, if you're talking about keeping a family together, I mean, that's sadly, I was a divorced working mom, but did everything I could to make sure that I kept all my kids under one roof and put food on the table. I had more jobs at one time than I had kids, and I had 3 kids. But social conservatism, if you're talking about just having traditional family values, just meaning, a decent adult trying to raise kids, I mean, I think everybody subscribes to that.
Yeah.
I think big government is such a dangerous idea. It destroys the human spirit, and it destroys those children's futures because it continues to perpetuate poverty, and they're always there. Generation
It gives a
after
message,
generation.
you can't do it without me. All right, ladies, I got to run. I'll see you back at the office. Get back to work. This is what I have to deal with every day. Isn't my life awful? See me next week right here on Colorado Public Television. Tell a friend. Until then, bye.